Welcome to Forte Catholic Radio. This is your host, Taylor Schroll. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. It is Thanksgiving week as we record here in the Red Sea Radio national, international, global, and galaxy-wide radio network. Galaxy-wide. In College Station, Texas, we are here about to leave on our trips for Thanksgiving. You are listening to this on Thursday morning. Actually, you're probably not. Well, maybe you are. Maybe you're cooking Thanksgiving breakfast and listening to Forte Catholic. That's a nice mental image. Hello, Susan, cooking in your kitchen.
And if you are, thank you. We are thankful. We
do thank you for all the, I don't know who Susan is, but I really hope there's a lady named Susan that's cooking while listening to this. So we have a lot of things to be thankful for here at the show. One thing to be thankful for is that Red Sea Radio just got a new app. For your phone, for your iPad or whatever. You can listen to live radio on your phone there. Or you can listen to, past shows of your favorite Catholic shows like Forte Catholic, Red Sea Roundup, Everyday Catholics, stuff like that. Mystery of Parenthood. Can't forget that guy. He's my spiritual director. That'd be rude. Cool new app that just came out today, actually. So that's very exciting. Another thing that Sam and I, producer Sam's here. Sam, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Tired. It was a long day. I had school. I didn't have off like everyone else and Brian.
You know what I did today?
What?
I played video games until I came to the show.
Wow.
Actually, that's not all I did. I actually did one adult thing. I went to the tax office 3 months late. So we got a new car. I was supposed to put the title in my name, and it went to the ministry's name. It's supposed to come to mine. Anyways, this whole complicated thing. Well, I needed a signature, and then I kind of forgot about it.
Struggle.
So I went back. Also, I had to go get a new, what are they called? The little inspection sticker? Not inspection stickers. The registration sticker.
Registration.
So this whole ordeal. It expired at the end of August. It's now the end of November. So I've been driving around with an expired sticker for months. And you want to hear a true miracle. I drive by the police office, like the police department, every single day, either going to work or church. I drive by it every day. And from the end of August until last Friday, I did not get pulled over. No, not Friday. What day did we leave, Sam?
We left Thursday.
I got pulled over Wednesday night.
That's right.
So there's just a little traffic update here on Forte Catholic. The exit that I usually take to go just about everywhere in my life has been closed off of the highway. So you actually have to take the exit before. And so that's very frustrating because they've been doing construction. The word doing is actually a lie. All they did was tear something up, put up cones, and haven't actually made progress in the last 6 months. So I'm fairly frustrated about it. So the way that I fight back against the man is that I actually go the speed that you're supposed to go on the highway on the feeder road.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's my way of sticking to the man. The man didn't like that. The man pulled me over. So very nice guy. Sam and I were preparing to go to Memphis, Tennessee. Me, Sam, and two guys that we also work with. And I was going to pick up some medicine because I was about to run out of mine, and some medicine for my son who was sick. And, doing 68 miles an hour in a 40, which is a felony, whatever. So insert catechism scripture about those who for the love of speed endanger others, incur grave judgment upon themselves or something like that. It doesn't make any sense. If I was 10 feet over, I could go 70. But since I'm 10 feet the other way, I have to go 40. Stupid. So I saw the cop, and I just started pulling over. He didn't even turn his lights on or whatever. I just started pulling over, and then he turned his lights on after I started turning. So he was a real nice guy. He's like, why are you going so... He's like, do you know that you were speeding? I was like, yeah. I wasn't even going to try to lie or anything. But he pulls me over, and he's like, why are you going so fast? I was like, man, I'm honestly just kind of tired, and he's like, where are you headed? I was like, I'm going to pick up medicine for me and my son. He let me off. I was going 28 miles over the speed limit, and he let me off. What a nice guy. But I did finally get caught for the for the registration tickets. He's like, I got to give you something, dude. So he was like, but this one you can get taken care of. So I went by today to the tax office, and they were like, okay, I had to like sign this thing. Did you drive the car since August? Yes. Were you giving a ticket for driving a said car? Yes. Why are you asking me all these questions? What is this, confession? We'll get to confession later. But it was only $20, and it's like it never happened. So actually, this isn't going to air. We're going to make this show just like after confession, where I did something, but it's like I didn't do it at all. That's what the court did for my ticket. It's like it never happened. So you're never going to hear this unless Sam posts it as a podcast. I kind of feel like she will. Okay, so
Dun, dun, dun.
enough about today. So as I said, Sam and I went to this conference called NYWC, the National Youth Workers Convention in Memphis, Tennessee. We left bright and early Thursday morning. We came back bright and early. You couldn't get much earlier on Monday morning because it was about 12:30 at night, like Sunday nights, Monday morning, right? So cool trip. So I want to tell you, I just want to share a little bit about the trip, some of the things that we learned at the conference, because it was a training conference for people in ministry. We're not going to bore you with some of the ministry details, but we are going to talk about some of the things that we think might benefit you guys that we heard over the weekend. Just a tremendous conference, some of the greatest. It's actually a like non-denominational conference. So there's like I think there's like 2,500 people that have been working in youth ministry for literally from like 3 days before to there was one couple that have been in youth ministry or volunteering in youth ministry for 46 years?
40 something. Yeah.
40 something years.
They're trying to get to 50 years, as they said.
Yeah, there you go. They're trying to get to 50 years. I'm just trying to make it to 50 years old. I don't know. I think they have a better chance. They're like 80. So
they were really cute too. Yeah. They were a really cute couple.
Me, Sam, Josh, and Brian were we were the contingent from Blaze Ministries that went. There were 2 nuns there, and there was also one girl that we found in Mass. Of the 2,500 people, I'm fairly certain that I just named all the Catholics that were there at the conference. So, but why do we go to this? Like, as many of you know, Protestants, non-denominational people they started doing youth ministry way before the Catholic Church ever did. And they're very, very good at it. So we go, steal their ideas, make them Catholic, and then try to do good youth ministry. That's essentially why we do this. So we're going to talk about some of the things that we heard at the conference. But also, before we even do that, we just have to tell you a little bit about the city of Memphis and some of the things that we experienced there, because it was a trip. The first thing we have to talk about, it's one of the oddest experiences I've ever had in a large city. This has nothing to do with faith. I just have to tell you about this because it was so odd. We left the conference and we just started walking. And like when you're in like downtown New York City or downtown Houston, you just start walking in any direction and there's a restaurant, every other building, like 4 a block. And even if there's not, you walk another one. We walked for a good 15 minutes and didn't see a restaurant. We saw one Subway. It was closed. Like everything else was closed. Nothing was open. And you know how like you're in a big city. So there's all these, on the blocks, there's all these high buildings and all this kind of stuff. We looked down every street. We didn't see another human for 15 minutes.
Kind of terrifying.
It was trippy. Like I literally thought we either went to the Upside Down from Stranger Things or we were in The Walking Dead and like everybody else was zombies and they were like just going to attack us around the next corner. It was the weirdest thing.
I was thinking more like the rapture happened and we missed out. I was
all
really
the
worried.
Protestants and left the Catholics in the middle of the street. You don't believe in the rapture, so it didn't happen to you, but it sure did happen to them. It's kind of like the opposite of purgatory. Like Protestants don't believe in purgatory, which is probably why they're going to spend a lot of time there. Hey, Protestants, this message is brought to you from your friendly show host, Taylor, on Forte Catholic. So we walked for like 15 minutes. And Sam has to relieve herself. We'll just put it that way. And we've been walking and walking and walking. We finally find civilization. There's one place open. One place. And it might be the fanciest restaurant I've ever walked into.
Yeah.
I'm wearing jeans and like a polo. No, I was wearing like a hoodie, right?
You were wearing a hoodie.
Everybody else, we're all just dressed like, jeans and a polo, jeans and a hoodie, or jeans and a jacket or whatever. all these people in there are like wearing suits and tuxes, and like we looked at the menu and it was like $50 for a French fry. Like it was super expensive. But the three of us wanted to be gentlemen, so we're like, we're going to do the gentlemanly thing and divert them while Sam sneaks into the bathroom. So we do. And as Sam's walking to the bathroom, she hears like the hostess like call the owner over. He's like, hey, watch them. Like, we did not belong there.
Did not belong.
So we finally found civilization and found out very quickly that we weren't welcome. But the owner came over and he was very nice. And once he realized we weren't like murderers or something, he started it's really funny because you think he's doing it to be nice. Oh, there's food over there. There's food over there. He was just giving us all these options. He said, go anywhere but here.
That's really what it was.
So anyway, he did give us some good directions. So thank you, rich white man. And we went over to this place and finally got food, found humans again, and we were very, very excited about it. So let's get to something serious. There was in Memphis, maybe a mile and a half from where we were staying, where the conference was held, was the National Civil Rights Museum. Mm-hmm. And apparently it's a big deal. Like they were talking about at the conference. They said if you bring your conference lanyard, you can get in for cheaper and all this kind of stuff. And they were like, okay. We looked it up and we said, oh, okay, we'll just have an extended lunchtime. Like we'll have like a 30-minute lunch, far, far away because they didn't have food in downtown Memphis. And we'll go to this thing. It'll take like an hour and a half, whatever. We might miss one session, but we'll come back for the rest of the conference. We were there for quite some time. So most of you know Sam, our producer. I want to let her kind of share her initial thoughts from the museum first, because you may or may not know Sam's dad is black, African American. Her mom is white. So this museum meant a lot to her, just because it's a lot of her heritage. It meant a lot to the rest of us too, because it's part of our American heritage, and we have to decide how to hate white people. So I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. True. That's not what the museum was about. But Sam, what was like? Just kind of your initial thoughts when going there. Why'd you want to go, and what were some of your favorite like kind of initial thoughts when we went to the museum?
Yeah, I always want to go and learn more about my culture and about the African American culture in general. I think something really cool is I used to live in Georgia, and when I lived in Georgia, I actually went to Martin Luther King's like house that was in Georgia, and we actually visited it and got to walk around. And so I still remember that even from being a kid, being really small, like walking through his house. But something really amazing is when we got here, it looks really small from the outside, but it's huge. It's massive, and you just don't really expect it. We ended up spending 3 hours just in one building. We didn't go to the other building or anything else. We just stayed in that one building, and it took us 3 hours to like get through that. And it was just crazy to see all these things, and they incorporated so much technology inside of it, which was really cool. You had like this movie that you watched, and at the very end of the movie, the screen like slides to the side, and there's like this secret passageway almost. But at the end, you see people like walking, like the shadows of people walking, and you follow the shadows into the next exhibit, which was really, really just really cool. They had this big screen. Do you remember the big screen?
I do.
Where was that? Was in the Board of Education Brown versus Board of Education room. And so when schools were separate, and now they're trying to like integrate the schools, and there was this really big board, and it had the United States on it, and you could click it. What happened when you clicked Texas?
Yeah, it showed like it had a map of the whole United States, and you got to click and kind of see what was going on in every state, like big stories that were happening. I think the one from Texas was actually about UT.
It was
that it was like they had to quickly make, like they told them that they had to let this African American person into the school, so they quickly made a new law school for this one black guy. Like it was just such a weird thing. Like they invented a school other than having them go to the same school. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, all the things that happened. One of the other cool parts is they have a lot of like interactive things within it. So you have the Freedom Riders, which were blacks and whites. They all kind of came together and realized that we needed to fight for freedom. And so they would ride these buses because at the time, black people weren't allowed to ride in the front of buses. So it was kind of like them protesting in a non-violence way. They didn't want to put forth violence, so they would just load these buses and drive through town, and people would find out about it, and people would set off bombs and things like that. And so you got to kind of walk through one, and they had like Rosa Parks sitting in the front, and there was like a dialogue happening back and forth, and then you got to go out and see another bus that kind of looked like it was exploded and messed up and things like that. So it was really trying to like tug at your heartstrings for sure within it, and like trying to move you in these people, in this history of these people who fought for rights that some of them didn't even get to see really full out, and what a blessing it is for me to be able to experience the rights and the things that I have today because of the people who fought for me. It was just amazing to see that and be a part of that.
Yeah, there's an interesting quote you talked about, like standing on like the shoulders of these great people who led this. There's an interesting quote by Barack Obama that I actually had never heard before, and I'm not his biggest fan, but I really liked this quote. He was essentially saying that like because of the Moseses that came before us, all these giants like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and these people, because of these Moseses that came before us, he was very thankful for them. Like he says, I stand on their shoulders as being the first black president. But he said like, we still need to fight like Joshua. Because, he's like using this Old Testament imagery where Moses prepared the people for the Holy Land, but he didn't get to go in. Like Joshua was the person that led the Israelites into the Holy Land. And I think that's kind of where we are now, because things are much better than they were when Martin Luther King was fighting the good fight and when Rosa Parks was fighting the good fight. But we all know that things aren't technically beautiful with racial relations right now. So there's still things like to fight like Joshua did. And I love that tremendously. It was a cool experience for me. Whenever we come back from the break, I'm going to share some of my thoughts on the museum as well. We'll get into some more things that happened in Memphis, and then we'll start a conversation about what happened at the conference, just to share some great things. Before we head to the break, I just wanted to let you know that if you are home this weekend traveling for Thanksgiving and you want to listen to past episodes, you can do that by going to fortecatholic.com/radio or searching Forte Catholic in your favorite way to listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes or SoundCloud, Google Play, whatever. We'll be right back to keep this conversation going. All right, we're back. You're listening to Forte Catholic with your host, Taylor Schroll. My producer and I, Sam, are talking about our trip to Memphis this past weekend. And specifically, before we went to the break, we were talking about the Civil Rights Museum. Sam was sharing some of her favorite moments, kind of impactful moments. I want to do some of mine now. So I took a few pictures, and I was just kind of reliving this trip when I was preparing for the show this afternoon. And just kind of things that stuck out to me that as I was walking through, things I either didn't know or gave me a new thing to think about. One of them, right at the beginning, we walk in, and it's just talking about like America around 1776, like when the Declaration of Independence was signed. And it's that we're in this circle room that it's just kind of telling the story of what was happening at that time, both with legislation, what was happening with African Americans, with these slaves that were coming over, indentured servants, all just kind of giving us this whole idea. That what was really neat is around the top of the circle, it was the beginning of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be, or the Constitution, I don't know. One of you people know. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. You know how it sounds, right? And it was to stand in contrast against what was happening. And there was one huge dichotomy that the Declaration of, yeah, that's it. I was right. Declaration of Independence. As he's writing this, Thomas Jefferson wrote those words. All men are created equal, and owned 600 slaves in his lifetime. And I'm just reading this, and like I knew that, But just it's like when you know two things, but then they're presented to you right on top of each other, right next to each other. And you're like, this doesn't make sense, right? This huge dichotomy of this man who can say, we hold these truths to be self-evident. No one has to tell you that blacks and whites are equal, that men and women are equal. And yet he owned slaves. Like, it's just this huge, the whole like speck in your eye versus the plank in your eye, that whole deal, right? And it struck me because I look at Thomas Jefferson and I'm like, okay, what's the dichotomy in my life? Where am I saying, oh yeah, I'm a good Catholic? I don't know if I've ever said that, but like where I think, okay, like I'm doing well in life. I'm striving for holiness. I'm trying to be a good radio show host, a good husband, a good father. I'm trying to do these things. But I know there has to be some dichotomies like this in my life because you know as well as I do, if you've been listening to the show for at least 2 minutes or ever met me, I ain't perfect and I'm not very close to it. So what are the dichotomies? What are the things where I'm saying one thing? Like, prayer is important. You should be doing it daily. And then only doing it 5 out of 7 days or 6 out of 7 days. So like, where are the dichotomies in my life and where are the dichotomies in yours? It's just like a question that I've been wrestling with ever since we went to the Civil Rights Museum last week. Another thing that stuck out to me that I never really realized, number one, the percentage of people that were slaves, like how big the slave trade was and how expensive it was. So first, it says in 1970, that's incorrect, 1790, nearly 40% of all Virginians were in bondage, were slaves. That's almost half the population. That's insane. Like, how is almost half the population in slavery? Like that just stuck out to me like crazy. And here's the one that just blew me away. Because I've been to I grew up in the South. I've been to plantations. I've seen plantations. There's a lot of times there's museums at these plantations, right? I never realized how actually wealthy these guys were. So in 1805, one enslaved laborer cost on average $200. By 1860, 55 years later, the price rose to $750. So you're like, oh, $750, like, I always saw these prices and I was like, oh, like they're saying that their life is cheap or worthless, right? That's what I thought when I saw the prices that slaves were being brought for. It's like they're saying they're worthless. I can just buy a human for $750. But I was thinking in like current, like to buy a person now for $750. That's why I thought that. That's not a lot of money. The equivalency, just how money changes. The $750 in 1860 is the equivalent to $130,000 right now. So if one guy owned one slave, he essentially paid what's now about $130,000. That's like the price of a house. That's crazy. So these guys had 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 slaves. That's how wealthy these guys were, and that's why they fought against slavery. It's because if you think about it, they're paying $130,000 per slave. They must be earning a heck of a lot more than that because they're not losing money with these slaves. They're making money over money over money over money. So that number just blew me away. And like you always hear, like, oh, they're fighting against it because this was how their economy was run. It's like, now I see it, right? But then we kind of go through, and it takes you through, you kind of walk through centuries or decades as you walk through the museum. And there was one as change began to start in the North, in the Union, right? I was going to say North America, but that's confusing. The Northern United States. There's this lady named Elizabeth Freeman in 1742. She was born in 1742 into slavery. And shortly after the Revolutionary War, she read Massachusetts Constitution and heard the words, all men are born free and equal. So she said, well, this isn't a quote from her, but, that means we're all equal. So she took the words to heart and she sued for her freedom in 1781. an all-white jury found her in favor. Not only did they grant her freedom, they made the slave owner pay her for all the years of slavery. Like, you want to talk about a miracle? In the midst of a time where slavery was okay, like, quote unquote okay, believed to be okay, she sued for her freedom with an all-white jury, the people in power. And they were like, yeah, you can go free and take a ton of his money. Like, that's crazy. Like, things started changing. But obviously it wasn't like that for everybody. So we get into this time of around the Martin Luther King time. Like, as Sam was saying, when we walked in, or when we turned the corner to get to the museum, we thought it was small. And we were all kind of taken aback a little bit because we're like, this is a hotel. The museum's built into a hotel. And I'm looking at it like, this looks kind of familiar. I didn't research the museum on the internet or anything. That people were just like, you should go to this. So I went. I'm very trusting, apparently. But it's actually the hotel that Martin Luther King was assassinated at. And they made the museum out of that hotel. So we start walking through and learning about Martin Luther King. They talk. One of the things that I saw was like it was interesting to think about was this violence, or this ethic of nonviolence. Like, you know the stories whenever they did the sit-ins, or like Rosa Parks sitting on the bus, like they weren't going to fight. They were going to sit there and just take it, just like with the idea that then the oppressor will realize they're wrong in their ways. Like, you're just hitting a woman sitting on a bus for no reason, right? Didn't always work, right? But like some of the things that it said were the thing that they had to sign to join this nonviolence movement. Meditate daily on the teachings and life of Jesus. Walk and talk in a manner of love, for God is love. Pray daily. Sacrifice personal wishes in order that all men might be free. Strive for good spiritual bodily health, and follow the direction of the movement. So like that's just a few of the 10 things that they signed. And I was like, oh, that sounds really good. I like this. And then we went to this. There was essentially it asked you questions to kind of find out where you would be if you were in that time. So it's like asking me questions about, like, one of the questions was, is it okay to like commit violence out of self-defense? And like, I believe, and actually like the catechism says that that's okay. Like, granted, the catechism doesn't say you have to do this. Like, you can be a nonviolent Catholic, right? But it also says that like, if somebody walks into my house, I can punch them. I can even shoot them if I need to protect my family, right? And again, people can make different choices. That's what I would do because I'm Catholic and I grew up in the South, so that's where I tend to lean there. But what was interesting is we saw Martin Luther King, and then we learned that that's like the main person this was about. But we also saw stuff about Malcolm X, and we had even been not joking, but like talking about how different they were. It's like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have been like Malcolm. And then I took the test and it said, you were Malcolm X. I was like, oh crap. But it was this idea, like this whole nonviolence thing. It's interesting to me because I do think I was thinking about it because it said that I was more like Malcolm X. And I think there's something to be said about self-defense in the moment. Like some of these guys, and like more power to them. These guys in the sit-ins, we saw a video of them sitting down and just getting pummeled. Like just all these white people just around them, whether it's cops or civilians or whatever, just beating the crap out of them. And they just kind of took it. They would put their hands up to kind of protect or whatever, get in a fetal position if they were on the ground, but they wouldn't fight back. It's like, man, I probably would have. And it's just this interesting thing to see. No, it's just another interesting thing for me to think about. Like, I don't have the answer yet. It's like, which one's right? Because I know I probably lean more towards the self-defense in the moment, but I think where Malcolm took it, I'm not an expert, but it was like preeminent self-defense. We're going to attack you because we know that you're going to attack us, which, if you know anything about just war theory in the Catholic Church, isn't okay. But anyway, that was just another little interesting thing that I was thinking about. But then we got to Martin Luther King. And he blew me away. Like, I thought I knew stuff about him. I really didn't. I actually didn't know all that much about him. But he said there's a couple of speeches that he gave right before he died, and it kind of seems like he knew he was going to die. The man lived with death threats for forever, but like the night that he got shot, he actually didn't write anything down. He didn't prepare anything to say that evening. Like the event that he was going to speak at the night that he got shot. And like the day before, and this is interesting because last week we had Anthony D'Ambrosio on to talk about the Beatitudes. So, you hear something and then it's not kind of in your mind. Dr. King wrote a speech about his death before he died. Well, I guess it would be hard to do after your death, but whatever. Stupid Taylor. Moses. Oh, never mind. That's a whole nother thing. But here's what he says. If any of you are around when I meet my day, this is just days before he actually died. I don't want a long funeral. And if you get somebody to deliver the eulogy, tell them not to talk long. Kind of funny for a preacher to say that, right? I'd like somebody to mention the day that Martin Luther King Jr., that he tried to give his life serving others. I'd like for somebody to say that he tried to love somebody. I want you to be able to say that on that day, I did try to feed the hungry. I did try in my life to clothe those who were naked. I want you to say on that day that I did try in my life to visit those who were in prison, to love and serve humanity. So I just want to leave a committed life behind. And that's all I want to say. And then he died. Like, so close to this. There's another quote right across the street. Because like the parts of the museum, there's the actual hotel where he got shot. You can see the place that he got shot. Then there's like the inside of the museum that they kind of built next to the hotel. And then across the street, there's a museum that we actually didn't have time to get into, where like the shot was, where the shooter was. And on this big memorial, like on the street outside, it says, again, from a couple of days before he died, it says, I may not get there. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know that we as a people will get to the promised land. So again, invoking this like Moses and promised land idea. He said, I might not get to the time where all men are seen as equal. I may not get to that point, but I'm going to keep fighting. And one day, we as a people, as African Americans, will get to the promised land. And then we get to our favorite part. We actually saved this for the end, but it was actually the first thing that we saw, and probably the most impactful. So, Sam, why don't you share your experience of walking up to the museum and see what'd you see, and what did you think about it when you saw it?
Yeah. So the hotel is there. You can see it, and there's like two cars out in front and like a gate, and right in front of the gate there's kind of this stone plaque there. It's pretty big, that was sitting there, and it kind of told you a little bit about Martin Luther King and what happened there. And on it was a quote from the Bible on there, and I think it's from Genesis, right? That's what we said, it was from Genesis. And I sat there and read the quote, and just as I was reading it, before we even got inside to see anything, I was already crying. Just to I just think the quote surrounded Martin Luther so much, and his vision and his drive and everything that he did, and every person that he met, everything that happened around him. This just like totally encompassed him. And do you have it? Can you read it out loud?
Yeah. So it says it's like essentially a tombstone. It's not where he's buried, but it's right in front. There's a wreath on the second floor where he got shot, and this is right in front of it. And it says, from Genesis 37, they said to one another, behold, here cometh the dreamer. Let us slay him, and we will see what become of his dreams. And so this story is about Joseph in the Old Testament. Joseph, the coat of many colors, the man who had all these dreams. And this is his brother saying, let us slay the dreamer, and we'll see what becomes of his dreams. And we look at I think what made it so impactful for myself and probably for Sam as well is that we know how the story ended with Joseph. They tried to kill him. They sold him into slavery, ironically enough. And then Joseph ends up, through a long slew of things, becomes the leader, the second command in this nation, saves his brothers who tried to kill him, and save the soul of a nation. And wouldn't you want to say that this was 4,000 years before Martin Luther King, that he did the same thing, right? He's this famous quote, "I have a dream." He had a dream, didn't see it come to fruition in his lifetime, knew that he wouldn't, and still kept fighting anyway. And they tried to kill him, and they killed his body, but his dreams lived on, and his movement, his message still live on today. So, we didn't even get to the conference. We'll do that next week. But before we go, we're going to talk to JP Quinn in our final segment of the day about science and faith. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Forte Catholic for our final segment of the evening. I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. JP Quinn, who hasn't been on the show before, but he has been on Patreon before because he prank phone called the station, got really freaked out, and then we figured out it was him and called back, and it was fun. You can check that on patreon.com/Forte Catholic. But now he stepped up to the big time and is now on the greatest show in Forte Catholic world.
Nice intro there. Yeah,
Thank you.
Was real smooth.
Real smooth.
But you're also broadcasting from the world's greatest radio studio, if I might say so myself.
You might say so yourself. I feel like you had something to do with it.
The carpet on the walls and or the disco ball and or the light on the outside of the door might have been my doing.
I feel like you didn't start making a radio studio. I feel like they put you in here and said, "You need to be in a padded room, sir." So you started putting carpet up all over the walls.
That might also be true.
I also want to put a disco ball hanging from the ceiling. Okay, crazy person. Whatever you do, as long as it locks from the outside, we're fine.
Now, they had to make me take the blinking lights out of the window at night because apparently that's against city ordinance. But it was a pretty cool place when I left it. I hope you've been taking care of it.
I really have. This is no Sam saying I don't. I don't know. I think I take good care of it. But the general manager and the guy that runs Red Sea Radio say hi. Actually, they say howdy because this is College Station, of course. And they called you the Godfather of KACB.
Yeah, that has been the title. I guess it was earned, but it was mostly stolen, I guess.
Like all good things.
Yeah.
Mostly earned, but kind of stolen. Like half the segments on this show. Speaking of segments on this show, you are a fan of the show. You've been on Patreon. I've talked to you a lot off the air about the show, but you like Ministry Madness bracket back in the day and all this kind of stuff. It's always been fun, and you're in my ear all the time, like the great person that you are. But we wanted to have you on because you do something quite interesting for a profession. What do you do to make a little bit of dollars?
So I'm an aerospace engineer, and I work as a design engineer at a major aerospace company. And I've done lots of different kind of space and or just generic engineering things in my career, but now I travel the world with a full-scale model of a fighter jet. So
you play with toys for a living, is what I'm hearing.
Very large toys that take like 9 hours to set up, and then I play with them for a week, and then I tear them down in 9 hours, and then I go fly somewhere else and do it all over again.
I travel the world to show people my toy plane.
And if you're going to be in Fort Worth, December 18th through 22nd, and want to come play with my toys, I'm going to put them right downtown at Fort Worth on Main Street. You can come play with the big fighter jet.
Will it even fit? Never mind. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. So never mind. I know you well enough to not go there. So we wanted to bring you on to talk about seeing God in physics and a lot of the science things that you do. That's why I wanted you to come on. But you wanted to come on and talk about thankfulness. So since you run the show, that's what we're going to do. So thankfulness has been on your mind for a little bit of time, and maybe starting today, and it'll probably end, Friday after Thanksgiving's over. But you've been thankful for some odd things, some unexpected things.
I thought it'd be fun to do a top 5 of the most unexpected things that I've discovered I'm thankful for, and maybe everyone listening can come up with their top 5 and tweet you about it, and share what they can think of that no one would think they should be thankful for that they decide they're thankful for.
Well, good. So that's what we're going to do. So like JP said, if you'd like to share that, you can do that on Twitter at Taylor Schroll, Schroll, or on Facebook, same name, same different place. So for the first time in Forte Catholic history, we're going to have a Forte 5 countdown, not hosted by me, but by JP Quinn, our only other Patreon supporter other than my mother. So without further ado, the Forte 5 countdown of the most unexpected things that JP Quinn is thankful for. At number 5.
I'm going to say real Diet Coke. Now, this might come as a surprise to you, but Diet Coke all around the world is not Diet Coke. All right, they'll try to pass it off as Coke Light. Sometimes they'll even say Diet Coke. It is not the same unique flavor combination that we get here right in the U.S. of A. So every time I'm somewhere else and I'm trying to have my morning Diet Coke get me started, it just isn't the same and it tastes disgusting.
Diet Coke is terrible. Number 4.
Number 4 would have to be my wife's understandingness. Maybe that's a little bit of a cheese ball to throw out there, but one of these last trips I was going for like 28 days straight, and that's not cool to be away from your spouse for that long, and she's totally cool with it. I took her on one trip, but still takes a pretty patient and amazing person to put up with me being gone for that long.
So much so that you made up a word. Number 3.
Number 3, I'm going to say is happenstance. And it's just the weird combination of events that lead to cooler things and bigger things and better things that you'd never expect. So I just happened to be sitting in my cube one day at work, and some guy came by talking about, hey, did you know that as employees of this company, we can get this flight simulator for free? And I said, no, that's awesome. So I downloaded it, and I started using it to see what we could do with it. And then someone else came by and was like, oh, hey, you know that program? And I was like, well, I'm picking it up right now. And then I got invited to London, and I got trained to be an expert on that program. And then I met this amazing team that started taking me to all these other places to help with a new project I was never a part of, all because I just happened to have it up on my computer that I was playing a video game at work.
Take that, Mom. Video games will help you in your career. Number 2.
Number 2 would be fast food drive-thrus. It's not a thing anywhere else as far as I can tell. Like, it seems like such an obvious, easy, convenient thing to have a place that you can just drive through and pick up food. But for some reason, no one else sees the value in being able to stay in your car and receive food in your driver's seat. And it drives me crazy.
Murica for the win, which is ironic also because you are currently at a Taco Cabana about to go through the drive-thru. And without further ado, number 1.
Number 1 is the yellow line in the middle of the road that tells you the separation of directions of travel while you're driving. Because for whatever reason, other countries don't always have yellow lines. Sometimes they'll still have white lines that are just a different pattern of dashes or solid lines with weird markings on them. And you never know what they mean over there. And there have been more than a few times that I've had to wonder if I'm on a one-way road going the wrong way on these tiny roads and hoping that no one hits me and watching faces to make sure they're not angry at me for going down the wrong way on a one-way road. And it's just so much easier when the lines are yellow. And it's such a simple thing to be thankful for. that it makes it so clear, and you know the answer, and everyone understands, and they stay on their side of the road.
All right, well, there you have it. That is our Forte 5 countdown of the most unexpected things that JP Quinn is thankful for. You are a very odd man, JP Quinn. I love it.
We didn't know that already. It's going to be obvious to everyone who listens now.
I did. We only have 2 supporters on Patreon, but now the whole of the listenership will be able to hear the greatness that is JP Quinn. So now,
if you become a Patreon supporter, you can not only listen to the weird conversation we had before this interview, but you can also go back probably and listen to that first one when I prank called, and it's epic, and it's well worth whatever you donate to Taylor.
Yeah, essentially what Patreon is all the things that I can't say on Catholic radio. So go support us and get some bonus content out over there. So before we go, we do want to talk about your profession, about what I initially wanted to talk about. So now that we're more than halfway done with the interview, let's get into me running the show again. So. So
hey, the best things have to be stolen, remember?
Yes. So by that logic, this is the best show in Catholic radio. So because the show always is trying to be stolen from me by you and Sam and Kyle and everybody else that tries to come in here and take the show from me. So there's been a theme on the show the last, month or something, and the theme of my life of people saying that I'm not smart enough for certain things. So the last couple of months, people ask questions on social media about topics they wanted to talk about on the show or questions they had about faith, and I'm not smart enough to answer all of them, so I've had people come on and talk about them. So I only passed my physics class in high school because the teacher was my football coach. You know a lot about physics because, again, you play with toy airplanes and play video games that help you in your career. So why don't you tell us a couple of things how you see God in science, in the physics, in the work that you do?
Yeah, so, it's a weird thing to connect, and I don't know that many people follow my odd brainwaves on a lot of things, but one that I found that really can resonate, because I've worked in youth ministry in the past before, and I've actually done retreats for Blaze and all the other groups that are awesome down in College Station. And one of the things that I think really resonates with people that connect with is the idea of the Bernoulli principle, believe it or not, connected via toilet paper to better understand the Holy Spirit. All right. Now, it's going to be a little bit of a wild ride to follow me on, all right? But if you were to take some toilet paper in your hand, right, and you have a sheet of it, and I were to tell you, put it up in front of your face, and you want to make the toilet paper, become flat, parallel to the ground, not just hanging limp in your hand, right?
For some odd reason, Sam just handed me a roll of toilet paper. I don't know why there's a roll of toilet paper in this studio, but I'm doing this as you speak. Okay, so play along, right? So you have maybe 2 or 3 of the sheets, you tear off the little square, you hold it in front of your face, and if you were to try and make that go up so that it's floating flat, what would you probably do? Blow on the bottom of it.
Exactly, because that pushes it up, and now it's flat, right? But here's the ridiculous thing. What I want you to do is I want you to try to blow over top of it so that you're blowing across, in the direction that you want the toilet paper to become. So if you just blow right now on that toilet paper on the top edge, it will actually lift it up.
I did it, and my eyes went super huge and freaked out. Sam laughed a lot. That blew my mind, yeah. And also the fact that a guest on my radio show is convinced me to play with toilet paper and put my mouth near it is just new heights for the Forte Catholic show. So thank you.
And so why this happens is something called the Bernoulli principle, which is something that after they kind of discovered it and played with it and learned how to apply it to things, they were able to create airplanes, and then they were able to expand it to really generate a large amount of lift on airplanes that could carry people and mass amounts of people. And now our entire world is shrunk and has become a completely different place because we can travel all across the globe on these airplanes because we discovered this cool little way about the way that pressure and airspeed all interconnect to create forces that then can lift things like toilet paper, but on a broader scale if you're going fast enough on an airfoil on your wing of your airplane. That's what's happening, is that it's creating a negative pressure on the top, a positive pressure on the bottom, and that pushes the wing up. It pushes the toilet paper up to be flat, and if you were to keep blowing hard enough, it would continue to pull it up. So you're pulling the plane up by going fast just because of the way that you're pushing the air over top of that toilet paper. And you would have never expected that. Like, never in a million years, if you're just, caveman Joe sitting there with toilet paper for some reason and thinking, okay, I need to get this toilet paper up, you're going to blow from underneath it. But it's that weird math, physics, science that we discover that teaches us the better way to do things. And sometimes that's just the weird way that the Holy Spirit can work in our lives. Because I know, at least in my life, there have been instances where, I see a problem in my life and I'm like, okay, I know this is how I need to solve it. So I go and try and work my own magic to make this happen. And I'm sitting there spending way too much energy trying to push the toilet paper flat when the Holy Spirit's like, no, go do it this way. And it's that little voice in your head, or that little nudge that pushes you in the right direction, even if it's an unexpected direction, even if sometimes God puts you into places where you're like, oh man, I really am upset that I lost my job, or who knows what it could be, that is really that better way of achieving the end goal that you're going towards. So it's an interesting thing, because when you're blowing on top of it, not only does it work, but it actually works better. So you can extrapolate this and tie a roll of toilet paper to the end of a leaf blower, and you can toilet paper a house in seconds. Or, I did a demonstration where you can actually make the toilet paper hit the ceiling of the gymnasium, and everyone really freaks out then. It's like you could have never done that if you were blowing from below. And so you have to just trust sometimes the weird ways that God works is actually going to take you higher and better and to the place that you actually need to be, instead of the way that we might intuitively think is the way to achieve our goals.
This blows me away, pun intended. Yeah. It's my job in ministry and as a radio show host to look at things and see, how can I connect this to the faith? I have to say, you one-upped me. I've never looked at toilet paper and thought, you know what? This is just like the Holy Spirit in my life. So,
and now, the next time you go to the bathroom for the next week or two, you're going to be thinking about JP and the Holy Spirit in that order.
I thinking about you on the toilet. What a wonderful thing. So here we go. We're about out of time. So here you go, guys. Here's what I want you to do. Find some toilet paper, and the practical takeaway that JP wants to give you is, over this Thanksgiving holiday, go TP a house in less than 4 seconds. I'm just kidding. That's not the takeaway. That's not the takeaway. JP, how can people connect with you, man?
I'm on Facebook. I don't really Twitter or Instagram or any of that. I don't know that there's great ways to connect with me, but connect to Taylor and he'll connect you to me, because I'm all for more friends, especially if you want to play video games on Monday nights.
Do it. JP, thanks for coming on, and thanks for being a man with no social media friends because you play with toys for a living. We'll talk to you guys next week. It's been a great show. See ya! Howdy, podcast listeners. It's Taylor. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the show. And for those of you that have been listening for a while, I want to thank you for sticking with me this long. It's probably going to get you time out of purgatory or something. But I would be super thankful if you could rate the show in iTunes. I haven't asked you here in a while, but iTunes actually just changed how they do their rating system, made it pretty easy. So if you search Forte Catholic in the podcast app on your phone, it'll let you rate it right there. Just if you scroll down, please, if you could, give it 5 stars, write a review. It'll help more people listen to the show as the new year comes around. So thanks again, and you guys have a blessed Thanksgiving break with your family, and we'll be back next week.